Welcome to our explainer. If you're building with AI, you are facing one of the biggest questions out there. How do you actually make money from this thing? So today, we're going to move past just guesswork and gut feelings and get into some real strategy for how to price your AI products. So you're out there, right? You're building what could be the next great AI product. You've got the tech, you've got the vision, you're creating something amazing. But when it comes down to the money, to how you charge for it, are you just pricing on vibes? Just picking a number that feels right? It's a really common trap, and honestly, it can be a super dangerous one. So let's talk about a better way. All right, first things first. Let's just break down why this is such a new and frankly difficult challenge in the first place. So why is pricing AI so much harder than, say, old school software? Well, for starters, your core costs, the models, the inference, they're constantly changing. They're a moving target. Then that puts this huge pressure on your margins. Your cost of goods sold, your COGS, is high, which is totally different from traditional software where you build it once and sell it 1,000,000 times. And on top of all that, because it costs more, your customers are demanding a crystal clear, measurable return on their investment. They want to know exactly what they're paying for. And if you want to see just how high the stakes are, you don't have to look any further than the pioneers themselves. I mean, at its launch, it was reported that even ChatGPT Pro was actually losing money for OpenAI. So when the biggest names in the game are struggling to make the numbers work, you know this is a uniquely complex problem we're all facing. All this complexity, it brings you to your first huge strategic fork in the road, and that is direct versus indirect monetization. Before you can even figure out what to charge, you got to decide if you're going to charge for that AI feature directly at all. And the choice really boils down to this. On one hand, you've got direct monetization. That's where you sell your AI feature as its own separate product or, a paid add-on. On the other hand, there's indirect monetization. And that's where you bundle it into your existing plans to get people to upgrade. Or maybe you even give it away for free just to get more people using your main product. Let's look at a really classic example of taking that direct path. GitHub's Copilot. Copilot is just the perfect candidate for a direct paid add-on. It's priced per seat, which makes total sense, right? Because it delivers this massive value to a very specific group, the developers, but not necessarily to every single person who uses GitHub. That makes it this ideal, separable feature that they can easily charge for directly. Okay, so that's the direct route. But now let's flip the coin and look at a more indirect strategy. And Notion AI is a fascinating case study here. What's so interesting about Notion is their journey. See, they actually started out with a direct, paid add-on, just like Copilot. But then they pivoted. They bundled Notion AI into their higher-tier business and enterprise plans. So the AI became this strategic lever, this really powerful reason for users to upgrade to their most valuable and now more expensive plans. Okay, so let's say you've decided you are going to charge. The next massive question is, how? What are you actually charging for? This all comes down to choosing your value metric. You can think about this on a spectrum. Way down at the bottom, you have resource-based pricing. This is like charging per token used. It's tied directly to your costs. Simple as that. As you move up, you get to things like task-based or workflow-based pricing. But way up at the top, that's the holy grail, outcome-based pricing. That's where you charge for the actual, tangible problem you solved for the customer. Zapier is a great example of that middle ground, of task-based pricing. They don't bill you for CPU cycles or technical jargon. No, they charge you for tasks. It's a simple proxy for the value you're getting. The more automations you run, the more tasks you use, the more value you're clearly getting, and the more you pay. Simple. So what does that holy grail, that outcome-based model actually look like in the wild? Well, you've got to see what Intercom is doing with their AI chatbot, which is called Finn. And this is it's kind of mind-blowing. Finn charges 99 cents. But not per question asked, not per minute of interaction. It's 99 cents per successful customer support resolution. So if the chatbot solves the user's problem and the user confirms it, Intercom gets paid. If it fails and has to pass it to a human, they don't. It's that simple. And that's exactly why this is so powerful. You see, outcome-based pricing isn't just some proxy for ROI. It is the ROI. Your success and your customer success are perfectly one-to-one aligned. Now, it's definitely hard to measure for a lot of products, but it is the goal, the North Star that the whole industry's chasing after. So, because all these choices are so tricky and the market is moving so fast, the old set it and forget it pricing model is basically dead. You just can't do that anymore. That's why experimentation has become absolutely necessary. And you can see the shift so clearly right here. The old SaaS way was slow. You'd guess at a price, you'd build for a couple of years, and then you'd have to hit your customers with this big, kind of painful price hike. The new AI cycle, it has to be a fast, continuous loop. You launch, you experiment, you iterate, you evolve, and you just keep repeating because the tech itself is changing overnight. So that brings up a good question. How do you experiment that quickly without, completely alienating your entire customer base every few months? The answer is you de-risk the whole process. You simulate first. So what is a pricing simulation? Well, think of it like a time machine for your business. It's a tool that lets you take your real product usage data from your customers and then backtest different pricing strategies on top of it. It lets you ask all those scary what-if questions without a single real-world customer ever being affected. And this is where it gets really practical. You can model different scenarios. So, scenario A, a simple $20 a month add-on might bring in an extra $1.2 million a year with pretty low customer disruption. But what about scenario B? A more complex, tiered model based on usage could generate almost $2 million. But, look at that, it comes with a high risk of making your users angry. All of a sudden, you have actual data to make a strategic choice, not just a gut feeling. Look, at the end of the day, this really has to become the new golden rule for anyone building in this space. Given how volatile everything is and how high the stakes are, you should always simulate a new pricing plan before you put it out into the market. It's the single best way to de-risk one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make. And that brings us right back to where we started. As you're out there building the future with AI, just take a hard look at your own strategy. Ask yourself, is your pricing built on a solid foundation of data and strategy, or is it still just vibes?